Hey y'all, today's episode is sponsored by BioCare Nutrition. And I know that those side effects for semaglutide can be brutal. I have been on semaglutide for 3 years, and I absolutely remember the tummy pains, the complete loss of appetite, the nausea, and just not being able to eat. But picture this. There's a scientifically formulated beverage that not only supplies you with the essential nutrients you need, but also minimizes the common side effects of semaglutide. And that's what BioCare is all about. The unique formula serves a distinct purpose. It's to give you a balanced and effective solution that supports your overall well-being and helps ease some of those side effects of semaglutide while making sure that you get all of your nutrients for the day. Visit biocarenutrition.com and use the code HANGRYWOMAN on your upcoming order. Welcome to the Your Diabestie podcast. My name is Mila, and I live with latent autoimmune diabetes in adults. This podcast is a way that you don't have to do diabetes alone. And today I have a wonderful guest. She is so empowering, so strong, such a shining light in the world of diabetes and just in the world in general. And so I have Alicia Torres on the podcast today. How are you?
I am great, Mila. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I always like to start out asking my guests, what is your journey or your connection to diabetes?
For me, I've been a diabetic over 25 years. And it started when I was in my 20s. It's been a long time.
Yeah. And what has your journey with diabetes been like?
When I had it in my 20s, I didn't take it seriously. I was eating everything because I didn't take it seriously. And then my doctor put me on insulin, and I didn't take my insulin. So I was always in the hospital. My sugars was up and down. It wasn't steady.
Yeah, we know now, I think especially with diabetes, there's a lot of medication shaming. Like you're told if you don't manage your diabetes without medication, you're not doing it right. Where we sit now, we know that's not true. Medicines help, medicines exist to be able to help. There is no grand prize for managing diabetes without medication. And if it helps you and it helps you live a better, longer life, it's always a good thing. And so I'm curious from your perspective, from where you were and looking at where you are now, how has that perspective for you changed?
Oh, it changed a lot. Now I take it seriously. 2 years ago, I lost my vision in my right eye. I have low vision in my left eye, and it was due to a detached retina. I never heard about a detached retina, but in that time, I was under tremendous stress. I was working a lot. My youngest daughter, she was in her teenage years, so she was going through teenage stuff. I wasn't happy, and my sugars were sky high. My blood pressure was sky high, and it just affected my vision.
What was that process like, learning the ins and outs of eye health at that time? And what were your symptoms like that kind of tipped you off to maybe I should go and get something checked and see what's going on?
I wasn't getting my eyes checked because I never had a problem with my eyes. 2 weeks before this happened, my eyes were blurry. And I just thought that I was working a lot. I'm fine. I'm not going to the doctors. Didn't even think about going to the eye doctor. And then one day I got off work and my right eye went black. I couldn't see anything. I went to the ER, and that's when I discovered I had a detached retina.
Those emotions, when you go through that, that's a terrifying experience in itself. How did you feel sitting in that room and knowing that this was kind of what happened and absorbing that diagnosis?
I fell into a depression. I was 48. I was saying my life was over. I was having a pity party for myself. I just thought that it was the end of the world. I didn't want to do anything because I was just scared. Also, I felt like I was damaged goods.
So many of us feel that feeling. Like you said that, and that just hit me because I'm like, I know exactly what that feels like. For you, like something that I appreciate so much about you is that even through a lot of these, hardships, how does that diagnosis change your life? So like, how is it different from where you were to where you are now?
I didn't want to go anywhere by myself. And then one day I just snapped out of it. I said, I still have vision in my left eye. I still can walk. So one day I woke up and I went to the store by myself. And Mila, I had tears in my eyes because I did it. I did it by myself. And that's the day I woke up and said, okay, no more pity party anymore. I am a warrior. Get up and do what you need to do, because I was feeling sorry for myself. And there were so many things I wanted to do. And I said, you know what? You are not your disability. Yes, this happened to you, but life goes on. And that's when I started to really just loving myself, and whatever the doctors told me to do, that's what I did.
That is such a beautiful way of looking at it, is
Yeah.
saying, I have this strength. I am a warrior. Like,
Mhm.
my diagnosis is not all of who I am. And like, I can take the path forward. I think so many people need to hear that, like chills, for
Yeah.
sure, for sure.
It was just a small chapter of my life. I still have a full life ahead of me.
And I'm curious from your perspective also, what does that look like? Like, what does the road ahead look like?
Well, I wanted to move out of state, and I did. And I moved to a state where I'm really finding my purpose. I started a podcast called I Am More Than Enough, period. I have the shirt right here. And really telling my story. I always had a mask on, and then I took off the mask. And I'm really telling my story, getting people to know who I am. I started speaking to different women. Everything I wanted to do when I was in the state that I was in, I never thought that I would be here telling my story, loving myself, motivating other women. It's all about women empowerment.
That is incredible and
Mhm.
so beautiful. And I am so appreciative that our paths crossed in this
Yes.
way, even though we all know diabetes sucks. But you meet some of the best people in the world, I think, and some of the strongest people you will ever meet when you meet someone with diabetes. And it's been like such a great pleasure getting to know you, getting to know all that you do, and just seeing what a bright light you are for people, and just how strong and hopeful you are.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit more about your podcast. What kinds of topics can people expect to hear? And like, what is the story that you're telling through your podcast?
So my podcast name is I Am More Than Enough, period. And that's period spelled out. I tell them about what I'm going through and what I've been through. I was a foster child. I was adopted by a family that didn't love me. And by me having not been loved by my parents and my foster family, I had low self esteem, no self love. So I was always searching for that love. I tell my story through my podcast episode of self-love. I have episode of boundaries because you know what? I was a yes person. And then I was in relationships that I shouldn't have been in. So I just tell people what I've been through.
I think that's a like beautiful way for people to learn lessons too. So I already started on your first episode before we talked so that I could like catch up because I was like, I have to hear all of it. I have to hear this story, and it's so captivating and so like raw and real. And so I commend you for putting it out there and being able to teach people these lessons about life and just like transformation, and the way that my mother would always say, like, you're not your circumstance. You can
That's right.
always, yeah, rise out past that, above it. You can, change your life just by changing your mindset a lot of times. And so I think your message is so wonderful and so beautiful. And then we're winding up to the end of the podcast. So I would like to know from you, what's one piece of advice that you would like to leave our diabesties about life with diabetes?
If you drink a lot of water, you wouldn't have diabetes. Things like that. Listen to your doctors and ask questions. Just because a doctor will give you medication doesn't mean that you just take it and that's it. Ask questions. Read up about on these medications.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice. Always question, because that intuition that we have is sometimes more valuable than just the answer that we can get in a 10-minute doctor's appointment. Yeah, absolutely agree. Where they can find you.
Yes, you can find me on Instagram. I am more than enough, period. That's period spelled out, underscore after each word. I'm on Facebook, Alicia Torres. And of course, my podcast is I Am More Than Enough on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, you name it, it's there.
Thank you so much. Y'all all need to go find her like immediately. Thank you everyone for listening to the podcast, and thank you, Alicia, for sharing your story today. If you want to revisit the podcast, the video podcast, and the transcript from the episode, as well as get all of Alicia's information, you can visit diabestiepod.com and you'll be able to find this episode and take your time just listening and digesting. But that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Alicia, for being here and sharing with us. And we will talk to you next time.
Mila, it was such a pleasure being here.
I'm so glad that we got to talk today.